Okay.
Okay.
So I can slightly make my notes. A little bit long.
All right. Welcome, everybody. We've got a hybrid audience, I think. Not that many people in the room. 6, 7, and late. A lot of good food in the outside. Feel free to come in. Let me get started. So this is the note well. You should all be aware of it. I'm not going to dwell on it any longer, but please comply with it. Now, as far as the procedures are concerned, what's new and exciting here? Sheng had a change of affiliation. He went from Huawei to individual contributor, and being in Beijing, the time of day is really, really bad for him. So we agreed that he'll listen to it afterwards, but he was very much active in the preparation of the meeting. So he's going to be very happy to continue this work. Area director, nothing new. We're always using the minutes notes page also for the agenda of the items after the chair slides. So go there and help with the notes and see the agenda and all the URLs for it. There is no physical blue sheet, but I would really ask everybody in the room to get onto Meet Echo, either on the phone or the notebook, and join the session, because otherwise you will not be counted. And then maybe we will not have 100 seats free, but I mean, they're doing planning for the size of the working groups. And also you may want to show up in the proceedings as having attended certain working groups. That will not happen by just sitting there and not doing anything. We don't have any official JabberScribe, but that's just the chat. So hopefully enough people in the room can help out with questions when people on the remote side are confused about what's going on in the room. But otherwise, just come to the microphone. Okay, we're applying early IPR disclosure process in this working group, which means that the latest when we're asking for IPR disclosures is when we're adopting works for the working group. You're also happy to do IPR disclosures for any individual submissions you're doing. I'm typically doing that for mine. And so we don't want to run into the issue of doing the IPR disclosure question only when stuff is being moved into the IESG at the very tail end. So we now have 9 RFCs, and so they're implementers of Anima protocol specs. So be sure that you are aware of the errata that we have, or even better so, you discover new erratas, and then you can use that process to make others aware of if anything we've specified isn't working out as it should. There's the URL here, and if you have any questions, ask on the mailing list or just the chairs. All right, where are we? So the new RFC was a draft IETF Anima ASA guidelines that was in RFC editor queue at IETF 113. So it passed through, and yeah, we've got a new RFC. Congratulations to the, I think, also all sleeping authors being in the Pacific, in the Asian time zones, New Zealand and so on, Brian and others. Right, we have 3 working group drafts without slot ask. So those are the ones that I would like to maybe get quick statements for the notes here. Don't think how I can share that quickly, but let's say we've got the Brewski Cloud. Is there any, quick thing to put in the notes for it?
Michael Richardson, so I guess I'm responsible for all 3 of those. Brewski Cloud is in the same state it was in at 113, which is we'd like a working group last call. We haven't changed anything. It has we'll have a normative reference on a LAMPS document that is not yet adopted, but that's not our problem. So voucher delegation, still a lot of interest in it. There is some work outside the IETF doing something similar, and we should do what they did. That may somewhat require us to wait for them to publicly publish. But other than that, it's basically it needs attention. Okay. 8366 bis. I did provide a slide which we might get to at the end. And there are working group decisions that need to be made about what to do with it exactly. Whether it goes to internet standard or not is the question. That's it from me.
Okay, so I've taken as a working item for myself to do the review and the working group last call for the Brewski Cloud, and the other tools or so maybe let's ping in 2 months or so to see how we can take up steam on them, because I think there is a lot of other items that we do have slots which are more important. Just wanted to track it with the working group share slides. All right, so these others will have slots for. So what's on the tail end? Yep, so this is my long reminder, which I'm not going to read in detail, but please, especially if you are co-author of any of the drafts, please, figure out which other drafts you want to do reviews for, and, swap the token buckets back and forth so that we get more reviews in the working group, because I think Anima is one of the many working groups where the IESG is rightfully complaining of having to do more work than it should do. All right, and one particular, nice way to do it is to become a shepherd for a document, which doesn't only mean a review, but also some interesting IETF process that the chairs will happily help you with. Preparing a working group, a shepherd document and so on. So that's a nice way to learn a little bit of the bureaucracy of the IETF if you ever want to become something like a secretary or working group chair or something like that. That's the smallest step to take. Okay, and yeah, so these working group meetings end up being a lot procedural, kind of remembering what marks to do, which next steps to do in the process, and maybe not enough time for technical discussion. And so that just means you're not asking enough to have forums for technical discussions when we're running out of time doing it 3 times a year in these meetings. So if you have that feeling for your document, please come to us chairs, and we'll talk with you how to improve on that. And most of the active work in the Anima working group was started by contributors just organizing themselves, and that's actually the Brewski design team, which is now meeting weekly from 11 to 12 Eastern Standard Time. Yorel is here, and that's pretty much doing most of the coordinating work for the Brewski documents. And I'm also trying to smuggle some ACP stuff into it when there is time for it. But obviously, if we have contributors of other work that would like to have a separate meeting, perfectly happy to set that up. Tooling reminders, so pretty much all of the Anima individual submission and working group drafts are on the unofficial Anima working group GitHub mailing list that allows us very easily to have every individual submission go into it and not bother with any constraints that the official GitHub procedures would otherwise put on us. And I think that's been very helpful and successful over the past few years. Right, and that brings me actually to the end of the official chair slides. Any questions, suggestions, any agenda bashing? Going once, going twice. All right. So I'm looking now at the notes page, and the next thing up is number 1 would be Stefan. You can step to the microphone. Yes. And do you find the slides yourself? Should I bring them up for you?
I just requested. Yeah, I requested the preloaded one, so.
Yeah. Okay, that's.
Okay, I'm still.
Okay, just a second.
I'm still seeing your slide.
Minutes waiting I had in another JWS voucher. There we go. Is that now? No. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening here. Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm trying. I'm not sure what my problem is with getting the meeting materials.
I think you somehow shared, so I could skip to your slides now. That's interesting.
You need to stop sharing your own slides. And then Stefan can select the ones he wants to share.
Okay. So for whatever reason, the video is not working. I still get an error message that the video is not working. So you should see the first slide of update on JWS signed vouchers. Okay, perfect. So I'm still trying to switch on the video because it's always nice to have some face to the slides.
Oh, it's there.
It's working. Perfect. So I would like to give an update on JWS signed vouchers. So that is describing a draft describing JWS signed voucher artifacts for bootstrapping protocols. And this is a draft from Michael Richardson and Thomas Werner. And Thomas asked me to do him a favor because he's on vacation. So greetings from him. And I would like to give an overview about that one. So just to have a short recap on what is contained in JWS voucher. So the motivation to come up with JWS voucher stems from RFC 8366 because it specifies CMS signed JSON for voucher artifacts. And this draft, in contrast, proposes to utilize JWS signed JSON as a further option to that. The draft basically changes the encoding, but it makes no changes to the YANG that is defined in 8366. So the format itself can be used by Brewski as defined in 8995 and also Brewski PRM prime, which we hear afterwards, relies on the JWS form factor. So that is basically the form factor that we completely rely on in Brewski prime. So also the JWS options that have been discussed in the past were related to the serialization, and in JWS voucher, now the serialization was fixed to general JWS JSON serialization, and there was a switch from compact serialization, and the reasoning for that was to have more possibilities and also cope with or also be as flexible as other formats that are currently used for the voucher. So for instance, multiple signatures are only possible when we use the generalized JWS JSON serialization. That wasn't possible with the simple or with the compact serialization. So multiple signatures are already supported by JSON and CMS as used in 8366. Also, the constrained voucher draft uses SIBO and COSE, which also enables the provisioning of multiple signatures of vouchers. So that was one of the driving factors to come up with vouchers in JWS. So how does it all look like? So the switch from the compact serialization to the general JSON serialization looks like the one on the left-hand side. So we have the payload, which contains the voucher. And just below that, we have the signatures. And here in the example, we have just one signature. And that is the protected part here with the X5C. And then the algorithm that is used here is elliptic curve based signing utilizing SECP 256R1. And what was included in the version 04 was this type here to allow for characterizing which type the whole payload is over here. So on the wire, that looks like here on the right-hand side. So this is that would be the voucher response here. So that would the view that you see on the wire. So those were the main changes since the last IETF meeting. So just to recap the changes here, there was an update of chapter 1, the introduction, and there was some rework of chapter 3 regarding the voucher artifact with a JSON web signature, based on the fact that we switched the serialization type, and in the last version 04, this optional header parameter for the type has been added. And that is being reflected also in the different examples in the draft itself. So that is for the pledge voucher request, register voucher request, and the voucher itself. So the next thing is finalizing the draft itself. Then there is some further alignment ongoing in the Brewski design team calls that Torles was referring to. And the outcome, as usual, will be circulated on the mailing list for further discussion. So here, there's also some interest in interop testing with others. So that could be, for instance, in the context of Brewski PRM, which I will report about afterwards, because for Brewski PRM, also the prototype implementation or the proof of concept implementation has been finished, and we would be happy to do interop testing with both, so JWS voucher and specifically also with Brewski PRM. And working group review is appreciated in the same way as Torles also pointed to the fact that for certain drafts, shepherds are still being looked for, and also for the JWS voucher, we're looking for a shepherd. So if there is interest, please come back to us or raise your hands to become a shepherd of that document. Any question?
Thank you very much. So I already put in the notes kind of the two process recommendations, right? So the changelog would be good to capture the names of the people that caused the improvements of the document to be made, whether it's official review or just in the design team meetings or so. That helps us a lot when we progress the document, so that we know how many eyes were laid on the document. And then also when you mentioned interop and so on, that can also be put into a to be removed section, but any information of actual implementation or interop or so are always very good input for IETF and IESG review later on, even if it will obviously be removed from the document and would have to come into its own deployment experience document later on. But no reason not to write it, and that's not specific to this document. That I think is for all the documents getting towards the the end of the working group life cycle, last call, and then further into it. These two pieces are very helpful for the process. So sorry,
Okay,
no actual technical input right now.
No, but that's very good. I mean, we have that since the last IETF meeting, that we have proof of concept implementations available for several of the drafts, and I actually wasn't aware that it would be helpful to put that into the drafts. But I will take that for JWS voucher and also for the further Brewski discussions. Okay, thanks.
I mean, we'll come up by the good IETF reviewers in IETF review, or typically then the directorate members, ISG review, and so on. So it's easier not to do it on demand, but do it up front when you already have the answers.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. A little bit later. So the next speaker would then be you as well. You can.
Right. So I can just share the other slide set. So this is a longer list of authors here. So that's the update on Brewski with pledge and responder mode, or short Brewski Prime. Yeah, I provided a link here to the URL that we have on GitHub for the draft. So authors of the draft are Michael Richardson, Elliot Lear, Thomas Werner, and myself. So we had two versions that were provided to the IETF since IETF 113. So regarding the main changes from version 2 to version 3, there are mostly editorial improvements. So we got some review comments up front, and we got some discussion during the last IETF meeting that led to the update of examples to be more specific, regarding the X5C occurrences. So we had some gibberish printed in there, but now it's all called base 64 encoded value equal. So that was aligned throughout the document, and as requested, we also included a graphic into the document, but then lately took it out of the document and just provided a link to the document to not have different versions of the text and the PDF file there, or the HTML file. What was also done to really improve readability was restructuring of section 5. That was a leftover from where Brusky AE and Brusky PRM were both connected in one draft. So we resolved that the structural issue that we had here in section 5 and basically flattened the hierarchy here. We also did some enhancement of requirements and motivation in the section 4 to have a better motivation for Brusky PRM as such. Then the main changes from version 3 to version 4 were based on a peer review that was being done by ESCO. So thanks a lot, ESCO, on that place here for the in-deep review. By the way, besides putting reviewers on the acknowledgement, I also learned that it is possible to put them as contributors into the document itself. So they appear then at least in the XML version of the file. So the majority of issues that we received there, so those are issues on the GitHub site from number 22 to 61. None of them was really a showstopper. The majority of issues were targeting improvements of the current description that we have there, because in some cases we had ambiguities, and in some cases we had to enhance the technical capabilities that we currently describe. So one of these technical capabilities was we added support for nonceless vouchers, and we had some discussion in the design team, or on the design team list for that, and that one was basically added to allow for provisioning of vouchers via save channel. So that wouldn't have been possible without the nonceless vouchers there. So that was one of the issues raised, and that was integrated. We had a further point, a technical point that was raised regarding the pledge CA-cert endpoint. So up to version 3, we only had the CA-certs input endpoint included on the registrar side to fetch CA-certs from the registrar, but we didn't have a specific part or a specific endpoint on the pledge side to provide those CA certificates, and that has been added or enhanced on the interface to the on the pledge side. So that also came with a requirement to add a new registrar endpoint, because since in Brusky PRM we are having the registrar agent as intermediate component, where we not have 100% trust to that intermediate component, we wanted to have the CA-certs response that is provided from the registrar towards the pledge in a signed format, so that the pledge is aware that the CA-certs were provided from the authorized registrar. So that has been addressed in the draft, and that basically relates to issue number 21. Then in the last IETF meeting 113, we had some discussion about the possibility to have a proof of possession of the registrar certificate or of the private key corresponding to the registrar certificate for the voucher itself. So that is one reason that we switched, that we are using the possibility to have multiple signatures on the JWS voucher that we are using. And we are not only having the signature of the MASA, we are also having the signature of the registrar now. And that provides this proof of possession that was missing so far. So that means we now have a similar mechanism, or we can apply a similar mechanism like the preliminary accept or provisional accept, like we have it in the TLS case for the standard Brusky. So that relates to the issues 32 and 49, and it was discussed already last time. The change that is now included is that we made it mandatory because we had some back and forth regarding how does the pledge signal that he wants that additional signature, and what does he do when he doesn't get the second signature. And so we simplified the case here and stated that it is always mandatory to support these second signature. We also clarified that the registrar agent itself may collect the pledge voucher request or the pledge enrollment request, or both in one run or in different runs. So that wasn't clearly stated for now, but yeah, that has been clarified. So then a further comment, I forgot to mention the issues here. Further comment was related to the format of the subject key identifier, and specifically what we take from the subject key identifier. If we take just the 20 byte value, or if we take it with the framing ASM1 information or not. So we described it in a way to just take the SKIT by the 20 bytes or octets that are part of the certificate. Then one comment from ESCO was going into the direction to avoid the redefinition of the voucher request. So what we did was in the first place, we did a copy of the voucher request from the RFC, from the Brusky RFC 8995, and instead of redefining it. So what we did now is we took the definition from Brusky and basically augmented the voucher request to include the additional values that we need for Brusky Prime. So that would be the agent signed certificate and the agent signed data and things which are not defined in the original voucher. So that simplifies the voucher definition at that place. What was also requested was an explanation of the terminology endpoint, as we use it in the document to make clear that endpoint is used in the context of a resource rather than a physical endpoint of the client. So that was also included. And then based on the discussion that we had, we also removed the join proxy in the overview figure, because we don't really need the join proxy, as the registrar agent is expected to be a helper application for the registrar and doesn't need to utilize the join proxy here. And between the pledge itself and the registrar agent, there is no join proxy.
Michael has a question. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, sure.
At the end, okay.
Okay. So next steps, based on the review comments we got from ESCO, we have 14 open issues. They are partly cleared, so I just have to incorporate them into the draft. Essentially, they will be addressed after this meeting. All of them go into the direction of clarifying the handling, response codes, and endpoint handling. What also needs to be updated here is security considerations that has seen some further review, and we need to update that. So as I stated in the presentation before, the POC implementation has been finished, and interop testing with others is very welcome. Also, as said, document shepherd for the document is needed, and what we as authors think, after addressing these remaining 14 open issues, we think that the draft is ready for working class call. Okay, thank you very much for the attention. If there are any questions, you said that Michael has a question.
He's running to the mic.
Hello. I hope that's loud enough for the people. Benoit is in the room, and one of the things I'm unclear about, so it's a kind of a question for Benoit, is whether or not we're augmenting Yang and we're using it, and you were using it for data at rest. And we have this kind of thing where this document imports from this document and that document imports from this one. And actually, in the end, we kind of actually want to have something that is just the union of all the extensions. And it's not clear to me, because I don't know enough, whether we're really using Yang in the right way for this. And it would be kind of useful if we could somehow have a Yang doctor review of the whole working group in some sense. Like, are we actually doing it right? Or is there something that we should be doing differently before we push, 4 or 5 documents to the ISG that separately might look okay, but as a group, maybe they're wrong. Does that make sense to my request? Yeah, it's a request to you or to someone else in the Yang space about how, are we really doing it right? I don't feel confident that we're doing it right. So that's what I wonder. And this document is an example of where it makes sense in the document what we're doing, but it might not make sense if you then consider it with 3 other documents that are also doing something similar. And I don't know, I don't feel confident that we're actually, that this is the absolute correct way to do it.
And maybe to add, because we are not aware of anything in the same fashion that we can use as prior evidence for data at rest.
Yeah.
Rob Wilson, Cisco. I think if you just give the examples, then either Benoit or to me, we can probably say whether you're doing it right or not, or it's the right thing. So I need more context about what exactly you're doing.
Okay.
If that works. I mean, you have, or if I came along to one of the Brisky design meetings, is that the right good place to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I would think so too. So the design.
Sorry, Rob, what you're saying in terms of trying to discuss this with some people from Yang doctors in one setup Brewski design meeting or so? Yeah.
I'm happy to. I mean, we can get some Yang doctors. I think I'd probably have to make a judgment on it, and get more help if needs be. Right. So I'm happy to go.
Well, the data at rest aspect is simply that we're using Yang to model digital artifacts that may just lie on a USB stick, right? As opposed to just, querying, active information from a running router.
I don't see that should be an issue in the sense we also have.
But it's new. We couldn't simply, steal, from a lot of documents that do the same thing, and that's why we're nervous.
So we have Benoit's document. I mean, he could speak to of the Yang file format, instance data file format. So we do have a document that's gone through recently to actually have Yang data at rest and a document format for that. I don't think that's quite right for this purpose necessarily, because that has extra metadata stuff that you probably don't need, but certainly we are doing Yang data at rest.
That's not the crux of the question, but let's schedule the time to have the conversation.
Yeah.
I would second Michael's opinion. I mean, we had an early Young Doctor review of what is contained in the draft so far, but I think, especially given the last changes where we essentially made the Young description dependent on the Young description in Brewski, it would be good to have some kind of overall review of the Young application or Young usage. In the context of the different Brewski drafts or Brewski documents.
Okay, I'm giving you the action item, Michael. Oh, okay. So I'll take it down as an action item to schedule that meeting to discuss that strategy. Okay. Can you add the name of that document to the notes which you're referring to? Mm-hmm. Okay, and I have the AIs at the end. Okay, who's next?
Next should be number 4. This should be me, or no?
Oh, what happens here? Slow chair, fast participants. Excellent. All right. Do you need me to click on anything here?
I would like to share the slides myself.
Yeah.
Let's see if it works out.
Yeah, there is a green approve, click approve, yes.
Mhm. Now I see a selection of slides, but can I share my local version?
No, no, just the uploaded one. Other might be possible, but I don't remember.
I see.
exactly the-
Okay, then it doesn't. I can also use the uploaded. Where I
Mhm.
just have done some minor tweaks. I just need to find.
Yeah,
the
sorry.
ver-
I changed all the introduced numbering, but it didn't take it over here seemingly. So
Let's see. Alternative enrollment. There we go. Yeah, worked out. Thanks. Yeah, so I'm presenting the current status of Brewski AE, which stands for Alternative Enrollment Protocols for Brewski. As we agreed last time, we changed the name or the abbreviation of this draft from async enroll to AE, and so also changed the URL of the repository, which you can find here. And I've become the editor last time, and Stefan Fries, Hendrik Bockhaus, and Elliot Lear are the authors mainly, and I'm basically the editor. Just as a how to switch to the next one. There we go. Just as a quick recap of what Brewski AE is about. It's a variant of Brewski of vanilla Brewski, where the initial voucher exchange stays as it is. But then when it comes to the certificate enrollment, where usually EST is used, this has been plugged out, and any other enrollment protocol can be plugged in, for instance, CMC or a CMP, such that the things that in this dash dot box are changed and can be done according to the specific protocol at hand. For example, whether to get extra certificates, CA certificates, whether maybe get some certificate attributes, and then do the actual certificate request and get a response, or maybe some extra rounds could be needed in terms of polling or whatever the protocol allows for. And in the end, we do the usual enrollment status from the pledge to the registrar. So the middle part of the protocol is being generalized. Any questions or comments on this? Apparently not. Then let's see what has been changed since last IETF. We have set up two versions. The first version 01, by the way, the numbering had to be reset after when changing document name. So we start again with version 1. In this version 1, we did the renaming that I already mentioned. I also added the graphics that you just have seen, which I also presented last time, and Tolas asked to incorporate this also in the document itself, which turned out to be quite a difficult thing to do, given the constraints in the format of figures that are allowed for such documents. But in the end, I think I at least got an black and white version of the graphics in there.
yeah, I
Also,
apologize for dragging you folks into this. It's great. If something went out of that, I'm still very much annoyed about all the new hurdles that the XML v3 has been putting on, the requirements for the documents. Hopefully that can be improved over time to make it easier to get the nice colorful pictures into RFCs as well. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, this would be really nice if we can do this at least for later documents. Yeah, apart from that, did some editorial tweaks, more or less to restructure some of the sections, but not really content-wise changes. And we also added some details of the lightweight CMP instance of Brusky AE, which we just would suggest to call Brusky CMP. Then about a month back, we provided a further version of the draft where we clarified one architectural thing, namely, so far we had written that the registrar can act as a local registration authority or as a full registration authority or as simply as an enrollment proxy. And this proxy may have got misunderstood as such in a way that maybe the registrar has no control or no insight into what's going on. So we clarified this and stated that in fact the registrar can delegate towards the pledge, it's still the registration authorities from the pledge view, but it can delegate more or less parts or all of this registration authority tasks to some further backend server. So this is no actual change to the contents, but a clarification of the presentation of the contents. And for the CMP instance of Brusky AE, we just added a reference to another draft on co-op transport for CMP v2. And another reference. Oh, I'm getting some echo. Hopefully you don't get it as well. Another instance reference also towards constrained Brusky. Because this could also be of interest to have, for example, a constrained version of CMP with the co-op transport, and this can also combined with Brusky AE.
Okay, so if it runs down.
We've also done a POC implementation, and this was well received also by colleagues of us who got the good impression that this Brusky AE would be ready for incorporation into their products. Are there any comments or questions on these topics here? If not, let's switch to my final slides on open points or potentially open points. The only thing we're still waiting for some enhancement or extension would be the instantiation of the enrollment protocol to use EST the full CMC rather than the normal simpler version of EST. There we have been waiting for input of Elliot, but so far didn't get it. Elliot apparently is not here, so I cannot. Otherwise, you could have asked him. But it looks
He
like
has a new job role that keeps him pretty busy, but you can run into him on Gather, I think, more.
Mm-hmm. So I will ask him again, and if and when some further input from his side would be available. Mm-hmm. And then we would have liked to already have a Shepherd review from Tolles. Are you still up for doing that?
Yeah, let me see. You know what the order is. I was trying to put the my AIs on the bottom, so it seems the Brusky Cloud maybe is that high in priority in the list? How do you folks want to have these things serialized? Oh, we can take it offline, right? So just let me know what across the different documents how you feel I should serialize my time.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Yeah, we would also appreciate further reviews from other working group members. And let me take this opportunity and ask, is there anyone around who might be interested in doing so?
I would recommend to everybody just, to go through the list of, active participants in the group and figure out who seems like a good candidate and reach out individually in email. These broad questions, you can almost get no reply from anybody who's busy, right? So, but if you ask them individually, and maybe you also, offer your help with their document, that goes a much longer way.
Thanks. I'll do that. Yeah, and the final question is whether the document is already ready for working group last call. So from our perspective, it's pretty much so, except if anything pops up during some of the next review. Yeah, that's it from my side. Are there maybe any other comments or questions?
Yeah, for the folks in the room, maybe, we can always do the ask who has read the document. How was it here? Show of hands tools. Okay. Okay, so we had 14 people participating. 6 said they had read the document. 8 said they didn't have. So that's already good. Put that into the notes.
Thank you. And of those who have read it, would be nice. Didn't notice who it was. So if you could let us know, would be nice. But otherwise, we can also try to find.
I'm not sure if that tool actually tells us to. So.
Yeah, yeah. So let's see if anyone comes up to do a review, a formal review. Thank you.
Okay. There are not more questions. Again, right, in terms of the reviews, if I haven't checked the latest version of the document, if you've been tracking in the changelog who has provided feedback and read the document, if that's in there, that would be the first thing we chairs and would be looking into to judge how close it is to working group last call.
I will add this information.
Okay, then I think we're up for Kyun Xiao for the Anima distribution, the grasp distribution.
Yes, exactly. So how could I share my screen, or I just click
you need to click on the share slides.
Share slides.
Share preloaded slides is always the best.
Okay. Yes.
And then I approve that.
Yeah.
And
then I click the number 4 or slice number 4. Yes. Oops. Share. Is it showing up already?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. So, hello everybody. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good evening. So, I'm now in Germany. So it's already not late, but it's almost late. Okay, so since we didn't get a chance for the last meeting, because of internal, let's say, approval issue, So we didn't get a go to attend this meeting, so we could not register IETF 130. So, but this time we got a go, so we can come here and do some updates. So this slide is about the version 5 for the graph distribution. Okay, next page. This is a short reminder. The main content of the draft is about how to reutilize the, let's say, the grasp, the protocol, the API, with a very limited extension, so that we can have enhanced information distribution module for the whole ANI. So this is our main target. Next page. So here's some short, let's say, short briefing since 112, 130. So we updated from version 2 to 4. The main change here is that we took the first author and we moved Zoran and Brown's name to the acknowledgement, and we focused on polishing the use cases and requirements according to the comments from the mailing list. But this time we went into more details, according to the comments provided by our shepherd, Michael. So we go one by one from his review comments. So we made some updates from version 4 to version 5. Okay, so here's our some comments that we have addressed in this version. So the first one is that the review comment says that the use case section is okay, but it seems that the automotive example seems not to have the real world demand at this point. In general, we actually agree on this comment, but and we are thinking that this part could, let's say, we would like to keep this kind of use case, because we at some point maybe let's say the endpoint with mobility could be part of the ACP, although it's not let's say considered with the ACP setting yet, but we think this could be a nice futuristic use case if the mobility kind of, let's say, featured can be included or can be part of the whole AMI. But we can discuss, of course. But we add some clarifications and pointed out its gap to the existing scope of the ANI, let's say, in this version. And another comment about the use case part is that it pointed out whether the CGP management functions could be, let's say, performed with an ANI. But actually, right now, CGP does not use the GRASP protocol. Of course, it uses HTTP 2.0 and JSON, for this use. But this is kind of like our whole motivation, behind that, because we think there are huge potential, and even internally, when we are discussing, let's say, in Huawei, we also promote Anima's work, because we think there are huge potential where Anima's work, let's say, concept, protocols, and architecture, and so on, could play a very important role in 3GPP network. Let's say it's not that easy that we fully replaced everything in 3GPP with Anima, but I think it's a very good idea to say that, okay, how about the 3GPP network architecture? Even part of that could be, let's say, done by Anima's work, let's say, protocol, even architecture. That could be very nice. So this is why we keep this 3GPP use case in our draft. Okay, and the last one is that we actually mentioned that the in-network computing capability, let's say, features, but the comment says that there is no reference, so we added one reference for that. If needed, we can add it more. Okay, so let's move on.
Did you take comments here in the middle?
Sorry? Are you asking
Do
me
you take,
or?
is it okay to provide comments in the middle and not only at the end? Because
Of
then
course,
we
of course,
maybe-
of course, of course,
Yeah.
welcome, of course,
Right.
of course, yes.
So for the first point, I think it may be useful to remember that originally when we were doing Anima, the idea was to replace the whole control plane
Yes.
with an autonomically built one, and we just degenerated, so to speak, to an additional ACP, and that concept certainly is most useful when you want to get the ANI into existing equipment like big service provider routers. I think in the case of these futuristic styles, we may get back to the original vision of Anima, where the autonomically formed secure routing infrastructure would be, the only network that you have, and actually would be then a layer 3 equivalent to what most of these IoT networks already have, which is, each technology has its own layer 2, security mechanism, and that also, creates a lot of unnecessary islands. So I think, ping me as necessary if I may be able to help in improving that writing. So because I think this to me shows a lot more closer to what the reality in the future could be, give or take the market forces. And now I'm just ranting here because my network connection seems to drop me off, and I'm happy that you folks can even hear me. Unstable connection to the server, trying to recover.
No, I can hear you. No, I can hear you clearly. It's okay. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm back.
We can hear you.
I can see the slides again. Okay. That was the main point, and that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay. Then I will continue. So this is really about some replies to the comments about the use case, from the Sheffer. But of course, there are many comments we didn't address so far, but we will handle that as later. And then it comes to a very encouraging comment that the Sheffer think the data backup could be a very interesting functions for ANI and ACPO. Of course, we also agree. So then, but it also pointed out that the use case, aside from the data backup, it does not seem actually to be relevant to the ANI and the ACP. So then we think later on we should look into more details about the data backup use case and see if we should keep this use case. And then following this comment, there is one comment about saying that we should make, let's say, this document more protocol-oriented description, and it refers to this mailing list discussion. But we actually checked this mailing list discussion, but the letter request actually suggests the opposite. So less protocol-oriented description. So here there's a little bit confusion. Probably we can also, let's say, check it out later, whether or not we should make it more, let's say, protocol-oriented or less protocol-oriented. Okay, so yes, then it goes to, then all the comments for section 2 are down here. And then it goes to section 3. First of all, it's pointed out, let's say, the pubs and sub features for the information distribution could be let's say, less capable for when the network size getting larger and denser. So probably here, and we should refer more works. So we actually added some representative reference here in our number 5 version. And we also did a minor change, about this RFC. So the comment said that it should be, let's say, normative, reference. Okay, so this is the major change we made from 2 to 4 and 4 to 5. Then there are some problems also pointed out. Let's say it says that the document doesn't provide a reasonable security consideration. So yes, of course, we didn't reach that far yet. So we are asking whether or not we should consider, let's say, the security aspect. So this is the first issue. And the second issue is about the writing, I think. So we of course lack of the experience of how to write a proper, let's say, IETF draft. So we, in most of the cases, we use can. So we didn't quite differentiate in which scenario we should use should or must, or let's say, is there any certain rule that we should follow this kind of, word should and must. So probably we should also check it out. Okay, so of course there are many other problems that we didn't touch from the comments and opinions provided by Schaeffer, but we will also handle that in the next version. Then the future works, as I said, we will, let's say, continue, but I would also take this opportunity to ask, let's say, more attention, so maybe more group reviews, so that we can really speed up the process of this document. Of course, we can keep revising the document, but it seems endless. We certainly need very concrete action items or deadlines, maybe in this year, by the end of this year, so that we can go for the last call. Yes. Yeah, this is from my side.
Right. So thank you.
Yeah.
So comment from my side, if you go to the last slide before this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I think an explicit implementable example of how to apply these mechanisms would certainly be helpful. Right.
Okay.
That could be started just an appendix, but really just the explicit grasp methods, right? Who is talking with whom? Why are they doing it? And how then are explicit, grasp objectives exchanged how, right? Whether you implement that actually in any prototype code, maybe on top of Brian's grasp implementation or so on, that would of course be icing on the cake. But the whole point is, existence proof of an implementable adaptation of the method in this document.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
Because otherwise, it's always hard to figure out. Well, I can guess I could apply it this way, but once I see an explicit
I agree.
instance of
Yes,
that,
you are right.
and you would want to start specifying this out in text first before you try to implement it. And maybe the people concerned here about the lack of linkage to reality would already be happy just to see that written down. But I think it's certainly the best starting point to resolve this issue.
Okay, I understand. I actually have a question about this, following up your comment. So do you think that we should really, let's say, consider a very specific use case or scenario? Let's say, is it necessary to really have a very concrete, let's say, example to really say that, okay, this is the entity in which, let's say, in which application, in which scenario, in which kind of network or something like this, or just kind of very generalized the functionality, implementation or something like this? So to what kind of extent or scope do we really have to consider its proof of concept?
Michael Richardson at the mic.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
So, you need to tell us. I don't see any point in the document unless it actually describes something that someone can implement, right?
Yeah.
So, it's nice to wish for 3GPP to take on your stuff.
We also wish, yes.
But I mean, unless they're actually doing it, or then I don't see the point. Or maybe you want to implement it in your 3GPP equipment or 5G equipment, then great. Describe it how it works, okay? Even if that means the document is describing your implementation and not necessarily a standard and it has to become informational, okay, but that's still really useful. But a general document about you could do stuff, I don't see the point. I don't even see the point in reviewing it further. So, I mean, really, I mean, if you're trying to describe something, then please describe it in real concrete details with, you know, that someone can actually implement, ideally that you've actually implemented. So, that's what I'm encouraging.
Yeah,
And
clear.
maybe to help some productive detail on that, right? So I think when you're referring to specific standard bodies and how they could do things, when it seems to be clear that they're already on a different track, that's always a bad reference, right? So it's, you know, try to find a reference. I mean, the benefit on how to do it, the exact example that described the detail of you know, the grasp method, everything necessary to implement that. That's one part. The applicability to a particular use case scenario for that should just be, you know, as specific as possible, but not, you know, in contradiction to what we know some particular part in the industry has chosen, right? So this is like, you know, I can't come up with a good example.
Let's say
I'm sure that can be overcome, right?
Okay, I understand. So then it means that, in my understanding, if I'm correct, we can, let's say, just stop at the levels saying that this is the node and this node that implements the functionality that we propose into documents. Then it's sufficient. We don't have to say that what node it is, and let's say it's a very specific node. For example, it's a network node running in 5G network or in 3GPP network, or it's a, let's say, vehicle, or it's an IoT device or something like this. Or
let's start to take it step by step, right? Come up with the most concrete write down of an example. And we'll basically start discussing it from there, right? To refine it to a point that we're satisfied with it.
Okay. Yes.
I mean, look at some of the prior documents. I think it's RFC 899 1 or 2. There is one from Shenyang and others for you know, example applicability of grasp. So that went one step further in the level of details.
Okay.
So,
yeah, clear. Then we will do that. Yes. Hello, Shen.
Hi there.
You have some comment? Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, yeah. My recommendation for this question would be, first, we can spend a little bit text to describe a use case as started, as Terry suggested. Then we should focus on a standardized scenario which is generalized. If that's something you know, too specific to certain use case, we can have that in the appendix. So that would make this document focus enough, but also have enough use case information for the audience, right?
Okay. Yeah, we will consider that. Yes, probably let's hope if we have enough resource, maybe in the next version, by the end of the year, we can provide something on the table regarding the implementation or functional descriptions or very concrete examples. Yes, yeah, we will do that. Okay, so is there any other comments from other audience?
No, I think we can happily take this to the list, and you know, please start on the steps that we gave you here, and if you have any more questions, let's do that actively on the list.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, update on constraint Brewski and joint proxy, and that would be Mr. Richardson. No, I don't think so. network service auto deployment. No, that was this, right? Yeah. Oh, that was graph distribution. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's my time. Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm just confused. The coffee isn't strong enough here. That's my best excuse. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Xunxiao, can you stop your share? I want to share my screen.
Okay, I stop. I stopped.
Okay. Oh, okay. Hi, Aaron. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes,
It's always better
I
if you
will.
can share the preloaded slides for the participants on remote. It takes less bandwidth and it's large on the screen. But if this is the best you can do, that's fine as well.
Okay. This is okay. Okay. Let's start.
I
Hello,
can
everyone.
revoke the screen and you can try to share preloaded slide. Give it a try.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry.
No,
Can you give
you're
me?
okay. Let's roll with it. You're asking for the screen again.
Yes. I asked. Okay. Now it's okay. Now.
No, it's the same as in before, but it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's start. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, let's start. Hi everyone, I'm Yujing, and this slope is about the draft auto deployment mechanism for resource-based network service. And at first, I will have a short review about the draft. And this draft, we want to discuss the question about how to establish a set of autonomic negotiation mechanism to achieve the negotiation and the distribution of the network resource in the domain network between the service and the network. And the key point of our goal is establish a autonomic negotiation mechanism. And this is a major change from the IETF 113 seasons. And I also received some comments from the Brian. And in this meeting, I want to explain my thoughts about this comment. And I want to talk about some major change from the IETF 113 seasons. The first thing is that I add some picture in the section 4 to discuss the process of the resource negotiation. I think this is important things, and will make our draft more easy to understand. And I will introduce this in the next page. And the second is that I add a grasp objective example use case in the section 6.1, and I talked about this use case as last meeting, and I update it into this new version. The third is that I discuss some comparison with other technology, and Brian suggests that we should discuss more about DNet, and I plan to do this in the next step. The last thing is that I corrected some text error. Okay, this page is about auto deployment process. And in this auto deployment process, we talk about how the two different kind of ASA can communicate with each other, and how can these two ASA negotiations the resource. And in this process, we have the three stages: the discovery stage, and the negotiation stage, and the after negotiation, what the to ASAT should do. And in this process, we add in this new version, and we add a new step about the synchronization to other ASA, and we add this in the after negotiation. After negotiation, the two different kind of ASA can get the negotiation result, and the providing resource manager ASA remove the accessible resource from its resource pool. And after that, the will synchronization to other ASAs how the negotiation results. And after that, the request resource manager ASA can tell the service that the resource reservation is ready, and the service can use this resource to send the package. And this is about the auto deployment process. And in this page, we want to talk about some compatible with other technologies. This draft we think is not a resource reservation protocol, but a mechanism to enable the service and the network to negotiation how much resource the networks can provide for the service. So this draft is different from other protocols is that it can support the multi-round negotiation mechanism and support multiple type of resource negotiation. And as for the denied, we think that this mechanism supports the negotiation of the resource for the denied service, and this draft we think can be considered as a distribution solution of the denied resource damage negotiation. And about the security consideration, and in this new version, we see that this draft doesn't want to introduction the action security programs for Anima, and we think I think the discussion about some security matter is out of this draft scope, and I think some security program is common programs. For example, Brian asked me some question about multiple domain network, and this I think as RFC 9222, and it says that this will be a possible weight point, and I think it's necessary to establish some rule to retrace about some about this security programs, and I think we need a separate draft to discuss it, and this is not our draft want to discuss. And for the next step, and we want to we plan to do the following things. The first thing is that we want to update the autonomic resource management objectives. I think that there are some non-standard writing of the new version draft, and it caused some misunderstanding. So thanks for Brian's help, and he gave me some related paper, and I will read them carefully and update in the next version. And the next question is about we think we should consider more about unexpected scenarios. For example, if the resource state change in the network, and what we should do something to ensure the service resource, and maybe we should talk about this more detailedly, and I think I should add an example in section 6 to discussion this question. And that's all. And welcome to do my comments and contribution. Thank you.
Thanks. Let me just back to the notes here. Was wondering, have you done any prototype implementation, for example, also on top of Brian's GRASP implementation? Yuying, did you hear me? Okay, I think we might have lost some connection. Oh, okay. I think we've strange. Right. Huh. Well, she was talking the whole time. Did you mute yourself? A second. Let me see. Okay. I don't think I need to unmute her. I think she can talk. So Yuying, if you can hear us, please get back to the microphone so that we can discuss this further for any questions or so. Otherwise, we'll just move on to the next slot first, but we can return to this if you get back to being able to talk. All right, which first brings us to Mr. Richardson, I hope. Update on constraint Brewski, which seems to be primarily the joint proxy.
Can you pull the slides out?
Oh, now it's me. Okay.
Yeah, you have to do it. I mean, I can do it.
Yeah. Materials. Where is it? Wait a second. Share screen.
Feel the microphone should be in front of the
preloaded slides. Yeah. Well, ask me. So I'm having to eat the constraint join proxy changes. Is that the one? I hope.
I feel like a nightclub singer here.
Yeah.
You know. There we go. Oh, look. Okay, so this is I'm Michael Richardson. This is an update on the constraint join proxy, which was in working group, has been through working group last call, has gone to visit Rob, has come back, and it's also an update on the constraint voucher document, and you'll understand where. Next slide, please. So, big thing that we did is that we moved a lot of the discovery text that was in, or the discovery protocol definition that was in constraint join proxy, we moved it into constraint voucher. And then we said, this is how you do it for the stateful way traditionally. And then we said, this is how you do it for the case that it's stateless. So if you are looking, are a joint proxy, and you're looking for a registrar, then the registrar in GRASP speak should announce itself with an IP proto UDP and a 5684 or other arbitrary port on which it's going to run CoAP. And it should announce it with an objective of Brewski JP, which in Brewski, it's just an empty string. We should have put something in there, but we didn't. So then, if you in fact support other protocols, for instance, the stateless protocol, then we say in joint proxy, you should, and this is the bottom of the screen in blue, you should announce it with Brewski RJP as your target, and then a different
Who's
port number
share
in
screen?
UDP. Pardon me?
Do I share screen?
You're not seeing a screen, you're not seeing anything shared?
Yeah?
Can we get some more remote participants?
Are you getting
up or down?
video?
Yeah, we are
From
getting
Eckert's
the
slide?
screen. Yep,
The slides are fine.
looks fine.
Yes?
Yes.
It's okay
I
now?
can't see the slides.
Yep.
Okay, maybe my side.
Can't understand them, actually. Okay, reconnect. Next slide, please.
Yep.
Okay, so if you in fact are a pledge and you're looking for a joint proxy, then if you want to find one that does co-op constrained voucher join, then you would see that by an announcement that says it's a UDP, and we put in the string there DTLS, and you'd see a port number. That's an arbitrary port number, despite the fact that I can't spell properly. It's not an arbitrary, but an arbitrary port number. And the important part is that in the join proxy and the constrained point proxy, there's no change, because from the pledge point of view, it doesn't matter whether the join proxy is doing a stateful join, where it stores its state in memory, or whether it's doing a stateless join, where essentially it stores its state in the network. Next slide. Different topic. Oh, wait, are there questions about that topic?
No, I think this is fine. The question is, how can we be as nice as we are in GRASP with this with the other discovery methods, right?
Yeah, so the document goes through it in MDNS, but it's less, I guess it's less visually interesting, so I didn't put it in the slide. Please look at the diff. It's basically just you look for a particular name, Brewski.jp or Brewski.rjp, and there's not any difference. It's, you know, it's a target you look for. It's less beautiful if it's not in GRASP.
I think my major unresolved, the unresolved thing I think we have is with core, right?
Yeah, co-op is coming.
Okay.
Co-op is coming, and it's at the end of the thing because it's the big conversation.
emergency
Yeah, next slide.
paragraph.
So we improved the document a little bit. One of the things we did is we put an extra level in the mesh, so it's clear that it's a multi-hop and not every device is directly connected to the registrar. And I keep getting a hiccup when I look at the diagram because I want to put the pledge on the left and the registrar on the right, but the other authors liked it this way, so whatever. The important thing is that the last hop is probably clear, and because it's not the device is not yet part of the network. Next slide, please. Oh, and we made it nicer looking with the conversion to SVG. Okay, so we had in the document that a joint proxy may implement both, with no mandatory to implement for the joint proxy. It now says the joint proxy must implement both. I don't know exactly how that happened. It's not what I would have written. I believe it happened as a kind of frustrated response to reviewers' comments about not quite understanding what's going on. So I made this table, and I'm sorry it doesn't quite fit on the slide. So what does it amount to? I think that all registrars have to support stateful onboarding for the simple reason that if you're going to make a co-op DTLS connection, it is a stateful activity, and you have to, a registrar has to support state for that. And there's no other way about it. So the registrar is always going to support that, always going to announce it, and that's a simple first step that's mandatory. A join proxy that implemented a stateful onboarding process, that is, it uses RAM to keep track of what's going on, would see that announcement and would say, of course, I can operate in that way, and would go. If a registrar does support the stateless method that's in this JPY thing, then it would announce it, and the joint proxy that supported it might prefer to do that rather than the stateful one if it prefers to use network to store the state rather than RAM. And that's not necessarily every device there. In particular, if you're not battery operated, but you do have and you have lots of RAM, then, and your network's very poor, then stateful might be a better choice. You know, it depends. I would rather not say that either are mandatory. I would like to tell people, if you buy a registrar and it doesn't support stateless, and you buy join proxies that don't, that a registrar that does not do stateless, yes, and you buy join proxies that only do stateless, then it's not going to work. So I would say that it's not an interoperability failure, that is a procurement failure, in my opinion. The interoperability failure would be, is if the registrar did support stateless and the join proxies did support stateless, but they failed to negotiate that in real life, right? I mean, it's similarly, if I buy a Cisco router with short haul optics, and I buy a Juniper router with only copper connections, it also doesn't interoperate, despite the fact that everyone else has got things. You've got the wrong plugs. And so this, I think, is a wrong plug situation. But I would love to have more comments on the list. I just don't think that we really want to tell every join proxy entity that you must implement both, or that you must implement one, or you must implement the other, because I really think it depends upon what your target environment is. What we should have is, we should have, whatever you have implemented, it should automatically configure and find the thing that works.
Can I add to your rant, my rant, which is about security? We have been, I think, in pretty much every IETF spec pretty bad about defining really actionable state overload protection. So from the security perspective, the stateless is so much easier, right? We don't have to specify anything, because there is really no problem of doing the security and state overload control on the registrar. It's a big box that can easily get software updates. But on the proxies, that's a lot harder if we do stateful on the proxy.
If the working group, and you are telling me that we should make stateless mandatory to implement, then I actually don't have a problem with that.
I'm just bringing the security thing to the table as one that will typically only run into in the end of the process in IESG, and put it out for consideration. I don't want to make any judgment calls right now.
So I would agree with you, that would go with it. There are different attacks in that case, and I'm happy to go through them and to put it in the security considerations. But I think at least the authors, we need some more clear guidance as to what to do here. I would prefer to leave it open, but I'll go with whatever anyone wants. You're going to speak from the mic? Oh, you're gonna fix something else. Okay. This is the problem when you have your AD do your IT support.
Rob Wilson, Cisco. So I'm not sure I feel that strongly on this. I mean, I obviously raised a comment during my review. I think it was simply the observation that if there's a sort of minimum common denominator that all these things support, that obviously makes interop easier, that that if somebody doesn't know exactly what they're doing, I know this is probably not plausible in this deployment scenario, if they get one of these and one of those, they're going to at least talk something rather than accidentally take. So that's all it's from. I can understand that in the different scenarios, maybe one's a lot more optimal than the other, and hence it's hard to say always do stateless, always do stateful. I would
see, like, they also have to agree on the radio, right? You can't interrupt for 15.4 and a 802.11.
Yep.
Right. And so, at that level, you might say all the 15.4 devices ought to support stateless.
Yeah, but that's
that
also
would be okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And it's perfectly fine if the Wi-Fi ones just don't, because you know what, the network's so big, who cares? On the other hand, the network's so big, it's easy to fit all the state in it. Right? There's no issue about extra big, more packets, because you can easily fit in 1,500 bytes the whole state. So,
I think anything where you can sort of constrain down the minimum options, I think that personally, it feels to me that improves interoperability.
Yes, I agree. So, I mean, mandatory to implement does not mean mandatory to use, but then you have the question of, okay, so if I implement both, which one do I prefer? And if you have different devices preferring different things, then you get weirdness, right? where, you know, on this side of the room, you get really efficient onboarding. On that side of the room, you get a different joint proxy, and, you know, something works differently, right? So, so that's why I'm like, oh, I don't know, right? But guess I'm happy to write anything. Okay.
If the implementation experience, for example, shows that the stateless isn't even significantly more difficult to implement, then we know it has the security benefits. So that those two pieces together might be, you know, to make that the MTI.
Sure. Let's write that down then.
Yeah. But I mean, that's basically the implementation judgment call, right? Because I mean, I was looking at it from the simple, I'm writing an application on top of a TCP socket, right? So the stateless stuff was difficult in the non-constrained case. Now in the constrained case, might be turning opposite with, you know, DTLS and everything. So if you can make the judgment call that the stateless approach is equivalent or even better in terms of implementation, and we have the security benefits, those two together. But
okay.
I'm
okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that. It's an additional piece on the registrar that we're mandating must exist, and but, you know, I'm actually okay to say it that way. I prefer the stateless way myself. Okay, because I really think that it's much better to do that for the low power devices. For that, they don't need RAM particularly for that, and they can just, you know, just go and let someone else take care of the denial of service attack.
And if I understand, isn't the registrar like a bigger box anyway?
Yeah,
so
it is a bigger box.
So,
you know,
yeah.
in the home, it might be the bigger home router.
Yeah.
Okay, but in an enterprise, it's probably in a cabinet in a 1U case or a VM.
Yeah.
Right.
But either of those two cases, I would have thought being able to support both of these makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not that much better.
But whereas the joint proxy, you know, it literally may be a light bulb.
Yeah.
Right. Light bulbs have power, so they're good as joint proxies. Right. Or at least when they're switched on, they have power.
But you won't get a security software upgrade on them.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. Those guys are actually, I think, among the best. But anyway, let's go on.
Yep. Okay. Sorry about.
Next slide.
Yeah. Next slide.
Okay. So we threw out our old JPY message. This is some ways a very big change at this late stage. But all the people implementing are basically authors at this point, so they're all very happy to do this. Basically, we said it's none of your business what we put in the JPY message, and it's just some context. And in the document, we suggest what you should put in it, and that it's less than 16 bytes, and you can AES and CBC encrypt it, and that authenticates it nicely. And you know, you can change the keys at your whim, okay, with some caveats about how to do this. It also makes it much, much, much closer to how it works with RFC 9032 or 31. It's one of those two, which is the 6-dish minimal security onboarding that uses the CoAP extended token in almost exactly the same way. And you could, and it has exactly the same problem and the same things, and that's what we did. So you could actually use the same code if you were implementing both on the same machine. So that's really it. This is, the working group really needs to look at this, because this is a change in the wire, you know, bits on the wire on the bits change. And so please read this and object now. Next.
Or approve.
Or approve, yeah. Okay, this is the part where we get kind of icky. So when we're doing CoAP discovery, if you were just looking for an EST or CoAP in RFC 9148, I think it is, recently published, you know, you would do something on the left in the green, okay? In particular, you would do a multicast, you know, request, tell me all the EST servers, and you get this response back that says, oh, they're here and they have this different content types and you can do these different things. Actually, I think that's wrong, because I think that it actually should have a CoAP S at the front, but I don't think you can multicast CoAP discovery over DTLS. But anyway, so on the right, we've done the same thing. In this case, there happens to be a stateless registrar available. And so he responds, and it turns out, according to the link formatting rules, as far as we understand them, going back to some 3000, RFC 3000-ish, RFC for some details about what the authority is. If you want to stick a port number in, you have to put the IP address. And if it's a V6 address, you have to put parentheses or square brackets around it. Okay, so that's the first one. So 7434, that's the stateless port number. What's the scheme? Well, we wrote COAP-S. It's not COAP-S. It's this thing of COAP over DTLS, and then this GPY header, and then UDP, and then IPv6. So you can't go naively show up and start speaking COAP to it. It won't work. You have to have the JPY header. So what are the solutions? I don't think that's the next slide, but I was going to make it the next slide. See what the next slide is?
You want to see the next slide?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There we go. This is the option. So the first option is, what's the issue? I don't see an issue. You know, that's it, right? The second one is, we can create some new scheme, JPY, and we wondered what the overhead of doing that is. How many reviews and external experts do we need to make that happen? And we started looking through a list of schemes, and we thought, well, maybe it's not as hard as we think, because there's like all sorts of garbage in there. So you know what? If someone says that's the right way, then I guess we could go that way. We could abuse some other scheme, I guess. But which one? I don't know. It would be abuse. We could just not use COAP discovery for this case, okay? Or some other idea, your other brilliant idea. So this is where I'm really would like a lot of discussion, and I know Karsten has an opinion and joined us for this one only.
Can I maybe add one concern of myself? I just couldn't find, good recipes on how to do this in the RFCs, right? So
well, nobody's done exactly this before.
So maybe,
right?
I don't know, when is actually the internet isn't working. So when is actually the co-op working group, right? If they have 5 minutes time, maybe we can even bring it up there, right? Take it to the original.
Well, we have the Karsten is the expert reviewer for some part of this, and so to a certain extent, if he thinks it's okay, then it's okay. And it's the expert reviewer for the name of the ski of the thing we're looking up. But I said there's other ways through this process. And as I said, one of the issues is maybe there is no issue. Ultimately, we're doing COAP-S. It's just we have a shim layer in front of it, and you have to know about this, and it's not said anywhere. So that's one answer. Opinions from the internet and from the room, please. Does anyone not understand the question? I think was the other question I should ask. You want to go back to the previous slide?
Yeah. Please, Rob, go ahead.
So Rob, my instinct is to try and create a new scheme here, because I don't think it's that hard to do. So that would be my first step to try would be, because it feels like that's the right thing to do and it's well defined what its behavior is. I think pretending it's not an issue is a bit icky, because it's not going to work if you had a server that wasn't expecting this. It's just going to not talk.
So we're not really ever going to use this mechanism anywhere else, I don't think, right? Maybe someone else has another stateless COAP-ish thing that they need to do with DTLS, but I can't imagine what it is, but it could come along. But that's what my concern is. This is a single-use scheme.
But can I just say, from the process perspective, I would like to understand first what, somebody who best reads our RFC would figure out is the recommended way from the RFCs. I couldn't do that. I couldn't figure out what the recommended way is. If that recommended way turns out to be, crappy lot of overhead, and we can come up with an okay way, that's just a fallback, right? But how do we figure out what the recommended way is?
I don't get your question.
The encoding, right? Whether, using a particular scheme, right? Having for this thing the port number, all these things. What is the recommended way to encode our information? We're making it up as we go. We're reading the RFCs, we think, but we feel, unsafe about it. So Is the expert reviewer the one that should give us the guidance? Is the working group that wrote the RFCs the one that should give us the guidance? That's my process question.
I think I'll ask. Yeah, I don't know which ADs it goes to. Art area probably.
Yeah, probably.
Right. So I mean, let's just figure out in the first place what the recommended way is to encode the information that we need to carry, and then go from there. If we can walk through the process doing the recommended way, then let's do that. Otherwise, find workarounds.
Karsten.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time understanding the problem here. So
Okay.
the thing is that between these angle brackets, you have to have a link. And there are many ways to build a link. But in the end, it needs to be a link. And
Yeah.
if you have a special kind of plumbing that you are using, a long time ago, we had the discussion about RFC 8232, no, or 8323, whether the best way would be to essentially do the HTTP thing and completely ignore the plumbing, or actually do schemes that are plumbing specific. And we decided to go for plumbing specific schemes with the intention to at some point invent something that makes life easier for us. Now that was 5 years ago, and this invention hasn't happened yet. So I think right now the state of the art is that you come up with a scheme, describe what it does, and put it there.
Okay. Thank you.
And I got drawn into this because I'm supposed to give a designated expert opinion on the RT part, which I think there is no discussion about the RT part. That's fine. But the example with which it's introduced, that doesn't work right now, and that kind of taints the RT registration that we definitely want to go forward with as quickly as possible.
Okay, so we're going to go find the scheme, figure out how to register that and what's involved, and get back to the working group in a couple of weeks. I think there'll be vacations in the way, but we'll get back to the working group in a couple of weeks, and I hope we can do that quickly. Any other comments? Because I'd like to go on to another document.
Just
we have 15 minutes.
Quickly, from a systematics point of view, the place that defines JPY should also be the place that defines the scheme.
Yes, so we should put it in our document.
Yes.
Yes, I agree with you completely. It just needs to be there. They need to know that they need to put this there.
Okay, I'm trying to take that down as well. Thanks, Karsten. That was a lot more that we got to than on the mail exchanges.
What's the last? Is that the last? There might be one more slide. Just questions.
Oh, that one. No, we couldn't live without that. Yes.
Okay. And I think formally it's coming back to the working group, Rob, for a second working group last call, right?
And given how we're moving, a lot of text around from the voucher, I think it doesn't make sense to try to progress any of these documents individually, right? Because there's so much tied together. So we should kind of try to run them in parallel. Right. Okay.
I was just going to make a quick one. I posted into the chat the answer I got back from Iana. So I put a question into the ISG, and Iana's on that as well. So, and they gave the answer. So it's in the chat effectively. I don't think it's that hard. It needs expert review, needs to be discussed on a mailing list, but I don't think it's that arduous.
I think we try to accelerate the voucher stuff. And I'm just fearful that the stuff then goes down a process where, we're still working on the proxy and we would still like to do changes over in the voucher because of it. So let's try to keep them parallel.
That makes sense too. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to pull up the other? Yep. This is a completely different document.
Okay. Yeah, you can have all my time. So I mean, I'll Just,
I think I'm the last. Am I not?
no,
So-
I still wanted to promote my, Grasp DNS stuff, but we can skip that.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's why I was trying to rush because I knew I didn't.
No, I'm saying it's fine.
Okay.
I'm just, which one is it now? Proxy EAP2 connect now.
Yeah, EAP. There's the word EAP in it.
EAP2 connect. Okay, for onboarding. Let's take that one then. Sure.
Okay, so this is a document about basically about how do we manage to run Brewski with Wi-Fi. So there were efforts in the EMU area to do Brewski TEEP. So one of the problems is that TEEP is not really deployed out there. It's not really out there. Doing Brewski TEEP might be neat, but doesn't really get anybody anywhere. So Alan and I wrote this document about how to do it. Next slide, please. So basically what we do is you do an EAP TLS and you use a network identifier of onboarding at eap.arpa, and you don't verify the server, and you get put on a network where you're probably very lonely, and you might not even get DHCP v4, and that's okay because Brewski doesn't need that. But you're encrypted, and you wind up in a captive portal of some kind. You might get all these other, v4 things and have a captive portal, and you might be able to, download Windows updates. And a lot of enterprises have that network already. Okay, it's what happens to you if you fail the I'm running the latest virus scanner stuff, and that's all we need. We just need you to be on the right network so that we can then run Grasp, find out where the joint proxy is, and do the rest. Okay, that's really it. Okay, the argument against this kind of thing has always been that SSIDs are expensive and we can't just set up our own, especially in enterprises. We can't just set up our own for onboarding. And the realization was that we already have it. It's a captive portal network, and the enterprises already have it. It's not a clear text network, which is what I had originally imagined. You do it this way, and we don't have any definition that says how do you do EAP TLS without client authentication, and so that's basically what we're going to do. It's a missing slot. We can fit this into this slot, and we think it works. Next slide, please. It's really very simple. As I said, there's the question of do you authenticate in EAP the server? And Brewski would say no. It's provisional. You'll do it later. On the other hand, if it arrives at a device that has a CA trust store and it can authenticate it, it could authenticate it. And that would be fine. There's an additional piece of work, which is how do I know which network to join? There could be many of them. And in some sense, that is an 802.11u problem. And I'm not even sure we can do that work in the IETF. But we do have a suggested solution for that. This work probably next slide. This work probably belongs in EMU. But I don't think it's worth taking it to EMU unless this working group has a clear notion that this is the direction we want to go. Okay, at which point we can argue over who gets the document. And that's about it. There's several other entities doing something very specific, very similar in different ways. And that captive portal network could be used for all sorts of things, right? It can be used as a captive portal, literally, okay? Where you actually go to a website and actually, put in your hotel room number and last name and get access to the internet if it's your laptop. So that would be reusable, but on your, you could imagine even in this hotel, you could do that and your IoT device could onboard, whatever, your pacemaker or something that you have. Alan, you want to say something?
Yeah. One of the other pushes for implementing this is things like TEEP, as you say. People are pushing all kinds of stuff into EAP because it's just easier, right? So for anyone who's read RFC 7170, which defines TEEP, there's a whole PKCS7 certificate provisioning thing there. And as an implementer, I'm sort of upset about just shoved everything into EAP. And what we probably should have done 10 years ago when this was originally published is just get people onto a network. So I've been talking about this general concept in EMU and other places for a while. There's some positive support for it and some pushback, but I think from a layering point of view, we have no business doing anything in EAP other than authentication. And that's where this is going. It just makes things easier if everything is IP for anything past the initial authentication.
And to be clear, once you onboard and you get a certificate and a credential, you come back and do EAP TLS again and get on the real network, okay, for that. But when you're doing it, and we can have 10 different onboarding mechanisms that, and if they run over IP or PANA or a whole bunch of other things, whatever it is you want to do, well, it's just running over, you're getting an equivalent of a wired, an untrusted wire. And I think that's really valuable because I think it just brings us back, as Alan just said, it brings us right back into we're running IP, not this thing that fragments poorly over, wireless frames and has no other controls or visibility or debuggability or that kind of stuff.
So sorry, you lost me somewhere before slide 1. So there is a well-known SSID for a captive portal that
No. What there is a way for the access point to announce the list of realms that it supports.
Okay.
Okay, and so the new realm that it's going to support is eap.arpa. And it can already do that. That's already in the spec in 802.11u.
Okay.
Okay, so you add eap.arpa to the list of things that this particular channel supports, and the client says, aha, I found one that I can onboard on. It uses the user ID onboarding at eap.arpa and continues. Alan, did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is
one thing we're doing here is defining what 5216 missed. 5216 allowed for unauthenticated EAP TLS, but offers nothing further. So all these STOs did magical things themselves. So we just defined something here, which should be much, much simpler.
Okay, so we're latching onto that 5216 to create a new announcement using, for example, a pre-existing SSID, which is different, but which will be learned through this mechanism.
Yep.
Okay, and then from there on, we just try to use standard Brewski, constraint Brewski.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or something else that, someone invents next year.
How difficult is it to build a working proof of concept from that? Is this?
I think Alan and I might have something by the next IETF.
Oh, would be cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
people in the back of the room might even see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty simple to do. It's just certificates on the server side, maybe not, and updating client side behavior to treat eap.arpa as special.
Yeah.
Okay.
So discussion on the list, please.
Yep. All right. Sounds cool. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to skip my marketing material for the Grasp DNS stuff and take it to the list. And I think we've reached another 2 full hours again. Thank you very much, everybody. And yeah, hopefully see you all in London. And this meeting is officially closed.
Thank you all. Hopefully see you in London.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you know what the problem is? I'm using the simple thing, which is just 2 wires. And actually for this hum, I would need 3 wires. Then it actually is without hum. But then I don't have the UK cable, an EU cable, a US cable, because I have all 3 of them. They're way too big. Yeah, but I mean, I think it's always very, very nice to have just the cable for the continental versions. US, Europe, China.
Yes, maybe.
Britain.
Yeah. Whereas this one, there's only 30 pretty much.
True, but it already is.